everyone. Thanks for joining us for today's webinar. Today we'll be going over using your GRM for your policy work at the federal level. My name is Sarah Husain and I'm on the client education team here. I'm here to offer continued education throughout your time with FiscalNote in the form of trainings, videos, and webinars like this one. As I mentioned, today we're going to be focusing on our federal data and capabilities. The goal of today's session is to familiarize or refamiliarize yourself with what information you have access to and how it can help you be more efficient and effective in your day-to-day policy work. First, I'll provide an overview of what data we have at both the federal, legislative, and regulatory level. Then I will jump into an issue monitoring for legislation, focusing on discovery alerts, watch lists, and search, as well as how to use your GRM to better keep track of quantifying your lobbying efforts, focusing on priority and position, actions, and reporting. The second half of the webinar will cover our regulatory capabilities. I'll walk through how to find relevant regulatory information, such as public inspection desk documents, dockets, what OIRA is reviewing, all via your discovery alerts and search. Then I'll jump into regulatory comments, focusing more specifically on how to find submitted comments, use our analytics to look at comment trends on rules that you're following, and lastly, how to submit a comment from your GRM. For each section, I'll walk through some slides and then I'll jump into FiscalNote to demonstrate it for you. On our federal legislative side, we have bills from 1989 to present. We pull bills from congress.gov onto FiscalNote about 5 times a day. In addition to legislation, we'll have a complete legislator directory with basic information on the legislator, staffer and contact information, voting history, analytics on how effective they are at passing legislation, as well as what legislators are most similar to them based on their voting history and co-sponsorship. Next, we have information on all of our committees and subcommittees at the federal level, including upcoming hearings and transcripts from hearings past. You'll have the ability to follow committees so that you can receive notifications on when a hearing is coming up as well. We have Dear Colleague letters dating back to 2001 and Congressional Research Service reports dating back to 2005. You can get alerted via your discovery alerts when a relevant CRS report is published. This can be helpful for any research that you're doing on policy issues you're following. Lastly, you can see what legislators are saying about policy issues you're following via Twitter. Today, I'm going to walk through tools to help you stay on top of federal legislation. FiscalNote will notify you once a bill that is relevant to you is introduced or published to congress.gov via your discovery alerts. You can have as many alerts set up as you'd like. For example, you can have a minimum wage alert that'll alert you every time a bill that has minimum and wage is introduced, or another one for labor unions. Each alert is made up of keywords and phrases that will be present in a bill that you want to follow. Once that bill is introduced, our system scans the bill to see if those keywords are present. If they are, then you'll receive an email notification about it, and that bill will show up in your discovery alert inbox. From there, you can go through these bills flagged to you and decide whether or not you'd like to save it, follow it through its legislative life cycle, or trash it. When you joined with FiscalNote, your account manager set up discovery alerts for you based on the issue areas you said you wanted to stay on top of. Some of you may not have discovery alerts because your organization has FiscalNote policy consultants going through these bills for you and then saving the ones that would be relevant to you to your watch list on your behalf. If you don't have discovery alerts, would like to get more set up, change some of your keywords or make adjustments to them, as well as if you want information about these policy consultants that do this work for you, send me an email after the webinar and I can get you in touch with your account manager to get those changes made. For bills you'd like to follow through their legislative life cycle, you can save them from your discovery alerts or from search by adding them to your watch list. Then you have the option to receive email notifications whenever that bill has been enacted, or if it failed, or when it passes a chamber, any action taken on that bill, you can choose to receive an email notification. We'll also let you know when that bill is going to be read in a committee hearing, for example. This allows you to stay up to date on what is happening and gives you the chance to jump in and influence the outcome. Once you found the information you needed on FiscalNote, manage what you actually do in response to these key legislative as well as regulatory developments. Once you found a bill that you consider important and have added it to your watch list to get updates, assess what the impact that bill may have on your organization or issue area. Is it going to be high or low priority for you? What is your organization's stance on the issue? Do you support it? Do you oppose it? Once you've answered these questions, you can mark the bill as such using priority and position. Other users have found it most helpful when filtering through the bills they have on FiscalNote and pulling bills from FiscalNote as well. For example, if you have a team meeting and wanted to pull an export and discuss only your high priority bills, you can do that very easily. This will also be helpful in seeing the big picture on how effective your team is during session. For example, how many bills that you supported were enacted and how many that you opposed failed. I'll go over pulling this information in more depth when we get into reports. Simply put, actions help you manage all the activities you do in relation to policy, such as meetings with legislators or staffers, attending committee hearings or fly-ins, etc. This is going to be helpful to you in two different ways. One, you can keep all the activities that you and your team partake in one place, and it's easily referenceable. Some clients say it's very helpful when they're at an event and they run into someone that they met with previously. They can quickly pull up that meeting that they had previously on FiscalNote, the mobile app, for example, and then quickly check what they chatted about. Some users also include personal information, like if that legislator recently got married or if a staffer recently had a baby, then they can reference that in the meeting. Secondly, it's going to be helpful in showing the impact of the work that you do in relation to advancing your organization's political agenda. I'll jump into that more when we get into reports as well. But the more information you input into FiscalNote, the more robust a picture someone will have on the work that you guys do. Lastly, entering all your activities is very helpful for filing lobbying disclosures. You can easily export all of this information out as many times a year as you need to file, and then get it formatted properly and have it all ready to go. Reports are going to be a great way to show the impact your team is having on policy issues affecting your organization, as I mentioned previously. They provide a breakdown of bills or regulations you're following, and they also show your priority and position actions in relation to the outcomes of those bills. In the picture on the left-hand side here, you can see the breakdown of my organization's stance on bills that we're following in three different issue areas: early childhood education, K through 12 legislation, and higher education. On the graph on the right-hand side, you can see a breakdown of the bill outcomes in comparison to our priority. You can see that 9 bills that we've supported here were enacted. That's great. However, 4 bills that we opposed were also enacted. So it gives you a broader sense of how we fared and what issues to focus on for next session. Now I'm going to jump into FiscalNote to give you a brief demonstration of what I've talked about so far and to answer any questions at the end. If you have questions about any logistics on using the platform or want me to demonstrate something in particular, go ahead and type that into the question box and I'll walk through it in the platform during our Q&A portion. I'll begin with a quick overview of discovery alerts. So as I mentioned, this is going to be where you're going to find your newly introduced legislation that have matched your alerts. So I'm going to come over to bills, had it on federal regulations, and you can see all the different discovery alerts I have set up here. You can think of your discovery alert inbox the same way you think of your email inbox. Go through each bill and decide whether or not it's something you'd want to stay on top of or not. And if it is, then you can add it to your watch list or mark it as irrelevant if it's not relevant to you. Both of these actions remove this bill from your inbox. Just the same way adding a bill to a folder is going to remove it from your inbox, as well as archiving it or trashing it. For each bill, you can click on it, just the same way I've done here, and learn more about it. First, we'll tell you why that bill was flagged to you and what language in the bill text was caught by your alerts, as well as how many alerts this was captured by. So if it was captured by other discovery alerts, you would see a list of that here. This can help you decide how relevant this bill is to you and what was in the language in the first place. We'll also give you basic information about the bill, the co-sponsors, a link to the bill itself right here, and you can go read it on congress.gov. You'll be able to see what bill versions or documents are associated with that bill, any similar bills, and a timeline of actions. Under all of my alerts, I want to make sure that I'm only seeing federal. So for those of you who have state as well as federal, when you click all alerts right here, you can filter down to US Congress to only see federal. So the idea of this preview panel here is that by the time you get to the bottom, you'll have a better sense of what this bill is about and whether or not it's important to you. So you have notes and actions here at the bottom that you can enter in. And by the time you get to the top, you can add it to a folder, or what we call watch list here at FiscalNote. I'm going to go ahead and add it to the corresponding higher education watch list. Once I do that, a little check mark will appear next to the folder name, and then it'll disappear from my feed right here. For another bill, if I find this irrelevant, I can mark it as such, and it'll also disappear. Another aspect of federal information that you can receive discovery alerts on are CRS reports. So if you come over here, you can see filter what data set you'd like your discovery alerts on. I'm going to come over to CRS reports. You can send out an alert anytime that a relevant report is published. So for here, higher education, and you'll receive an email alert as well as find it here. It's helpful for doing any in-depth policy analysis on a specific issue area. And you'll be able to pull up the CRS report just like this and read it right here. Another way to find information is by searching for it. So we'll jump into the Restoring Internet Freedom Act later in the regulatory process. But for me to just find a federal bill, all you have to do is come under federal legislation and click bills. You can type in a specific bill number or a topic area and search for it that way. You can also search across legislator information, committees, CRS reports to your colleague letters, and Twitter here as well. To see everything that we have for any of these data sets, you can just go ahead and click search. So I'm going to do that with bills, and you'll see a list of 8,000 bills at the federal level in this session. When searching for legislators, I'm going to do the same thing. You can see how effective they are at passing legislation according to the FiscalNote analytics that you'll see on each legislator card. Click or search for any legislator in particular to learn about them, and then you'll get some basic information about those legislators. I'm going to pick a particularly effective legislator. You'll see some basic information over here, as well as what committees and caucuses they're part of. Scrolling down further, you'll see some general trends on that legislator. For example, what legislators are similar to them based on their voting and co-sponsorship. You can see that right here. Also, how effective they are at passing legislation depending on the policy issue. So you can see overall, we gave them an 85.8 out of 100 in effectiveness, and that chamber average is 71, but it's a little below that for education, in particular transportation. Gives you a sense of where his strengths lie. You can also see a breakdown of status in what in the bills that he sponsored. So 22 have been enacted, 100 introduced, also 100 have failed. You can also see a breakdown of ideology based on issue area. Some more information up here at the top, you'll find staff information under the staff tab. You'll also find all the bills that they've sponsored, and you can click into them, each of them here. On the right-hand side, what's neat is based on the bills that you've watched, it'll show you how that legislator has voted. So I haven't watched any bills that he sponsored, but if you just want to look at all bills that I've have in my watch list, it'll show how he voted. And if I had priority and position based on them, it'll show me if he's aligned with me or not. Just some helpful general information. Now I'm going to jump into watch lists. So in your watch list, you'll be able to find all the bills that you've followed organized into folders or watch lists. You'll see them right over here. Personal watch lists are only visible to you. They're a personal folder. Organization-wide watch lists are folders that you share with everyone else that uses FiscalNote at your organization. So everyone can put bills into them. If you click on any one of them, you'll be able to see all the bills in that folder. So I'm going to go ahead and click I'll select all of my watch lists. If you click on any one of these bills, you'll be able to see that basic information about each of them. This is also where you're going to be able to indicate your priority and position on each bill card. So you can see that this is high priority and that we're monitoring it. You can add labels as well with the label tag right here. In that preview, you can also add an action or a note using this Add Plus tab or scrolling down to the bottom and adding it from there. Lastly, if you're updating all of this information in your watch list, you're regularly adding bills to your watch list, updating priority and position and action, you can pull a report very easily by selecting the watch list you want to pull a report from. So maybe I only want to select, I'm gonna deselect all, just select my personal watch lists. And all you have to do is click Create Report. And then you have the option of pulling a report from our preset template or a custom report. And if you click on that, you'll see a mock-up of what that report would look like. You can move things around, add graphics, put in a logo, etc. And you have a lot of options and customization options with using these little pencils. You can decide exactly what bill information to include. So for example's sake, I will show you a report I've already pulled. They'll be housed here under reports. The neat thing is, if you're regularly updating this information and you like the report format that you have, all you have to do is click refresh whenever you want to pull that report again, and it'll automatically update that report with any new bills you've added to that watch list, as well as any updated bill information. With that, I'll open it up for questions. We have one question on how to create a staffer email list from a committee. Very easily done. If you come over to your committees, and I'm going to search maybe education and workforce. Now, you'll see a breakdown on the committee page here of all of the leadership and members. All you have to do is click Create Mailing List on that committee page, and that legislator list page will pop up for creating a mailing list. And you can decide whether or not you'd like to include staffers and what staffer titles you'd like included. You can also decide if you want to export that list, if you just want to save it to your mailing lists, or you actually want to email all of those people. And this is where you would select whether or not you want staffers or legislators. But that is how you would pull that information. Another question that we have is whether or not our Dear Colleague letters are associated with the bill that they're about. Yes. If you come over to Dear Colleague letters, and I'll just go ahead and search for all of them, you'll see it depends on the Dear Colleague letter, if it is in relation to a specific bill or if it's part of a specific amendment. But for this one, for example, we'll link it here, and you can click on that link and it'll take you to the bill page right over here. And we'll also link it to the legislator who submitted it right here. So Christopher Douglas Stewart. It'll take you to that legislator page. We have another question on labels and how they functionally different from watch list categories. That's a great question. The way I want you to think about labels is another way to further organize the information you have in your watch list. So if I come over to my watch list, I have a higher education watch list, but maybe I want to link all of the bills that I have on student debt specifically, but I'll keep them in my higher education folder. I'll select that only, and label each one of the higher education bills, for example. So this is school choice. We'll pretend that this is relating to student debt. Now that label will remain on this bill page, and I can filter across it. So if I select all of my watch list, maybe I want to see all of my student debt bills. It'll pull up all of the bills associated with that label. That label will also be present if you're pulling any reports. Great. Thank you. Great questions. Hope I answered them. Feel free to shoot me an email after the webinar if you have any additional questions.